Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood Potato Witch. Welcome to the show. Final Fantasy V was released in Japan in 1992 for the Super Famicom, and we in the West didn't get to play it officially until 1999, when it was ported to the PlayStation as part of Final Fantasy Anthology. Since then, it's received about half a dozen ports to various other devices, including the Game Boy Advance in 2006, which is the version I played so that I could bring you all the story of Final Fantasy V. It begins with King Tycoon leaving his castle under the care of his daughter Lena. Something is wrong with the wind, and he has to check the wind crystal in the wind shrine, and Lena must be in charge during his wind absence. King Tycoon hurries to the shrine to check on the crystal, and gets there just in time to see it shatter. Meanwhile, this guy named Bartz is just chilling around a campfire with his best chocobo buddy, Boko, when suddenly, BAM! Everything starts to shake and a meteorite crashes down nearby. Bartz hurries to investigate and finds an unconscious woman on the ground. He wakes her and she tells him her name is Lena, and that the impact from the crash-landing meteorite must have knocked her out. Lena's all, hey, thanks for rescuing me, but I gotta go. But the sound of a voice stops her. Following the sound, Lena and Bartz discover an old man near the meteorite who has apparently taken a nasty clonk to the noggin and has forgotten everything but his own name, which is Galuf. Lena mentions that she has to go to the Wind Shrine, and Galuf is like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar, I'm pretty sure that's where I was going too, and decides to tag along. Nothing at all creepy about a strange old man deciding he needs to follow a young woman around, nope, not even a little, nuh-uh. Lena agrees and asks Bartz if he wants to come along too, but Bartz evidently has better things to do with his time and says nah. So Lena and Galuf head off and Bartz returns to his Chocobuddy. They don't get very far before Boko starts scolding Bartz for letting the others go on their own, but before Bartz can defend himself to a giant chicken, there's an earthquake and the ground starts to fall away and Bartz hears Lena and Galuf screaming. He finds them unconscious, rescues them, with Boko doing most of the work pulling them to safety. Lena awakens, and Bartz tells her that the meteorite crashing likely caused a bunch of landslides, and that the usual way to the Wind Shrine has now been blocked off. At this point, Bartz decides, yeah, maybe I should go with Lena and the old guy, because my dad's dying wish was that I go out and see the world. And seriously, Bartz? You just forgot that wish when Lena asked you the first time if you were gonna come along? But this time is different, and this time the very wind is calling him, and Galuf wakes up and says that Bartz is a sweet talker, trying to impress Lena. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's just find a better way to reach the Wind Shrine now that the road is blocked, okay? They all somehow ride Boko, I guess, until they find a cave that Bartz theorizes opened up during one of the earthquakes. Boko has to stay behind because caves are too dangerous for chocobos, but because there's literally nowhere else to go right now, everyone else heads into the cave, hoping the other end will lead them closer to the Wind Shrine. Turns out the cave is actually a pirate hideout. Lena wonders if the pirates might be willing to give them a ride to the Wind Shrine. Galuf figures they should just cut out the middleman and steal a pirate ship instead, because yeah, that sounds like a good plan. They sneak their way onto a ship, and unsurprisingly, they get caught. Imagine that. Ferris, captain of the pirate ship, commands them all to be thrown in the brig. Lena attempts to appeal to Ferris' sense of patriotic duty by revealing that she is indeed the princess of Tycoon. Again, unsurprisingly, this doesn't work, and Ferris is all, cool, you'll fetch a good ransom price, now into the brig with you all. This plan is going so well. While imprisoned and tied up in the brig, Lena explains that her father went to check the Wind Shrine but hasn't returned, and she has a feeling something went wrong, so she left the castle to go find him. I guess someone else is dealing with royal affairs in her absence. The next day, Ferris decides to take them to the Wind Shrine after all. The prisoners are freed, and I guess Lena's plan of just asking them paid off in the end. Okay. But how will the boat sail when the wind isn't blowing? Oh, it's cool. Ferris has a pet dragon named Sildra who can pull the ship through the water. We don't need no stinking wind. The party makes their way to the Wind Shrine, where Lena is informed that monsters have invaded the shrine, and the king went to the top floor to check on the crystal, but hasn't returned. The party fight their way up the floors of the shrine until they find their path blocked by a large bird, the Wing Raptor. The party take it down and continue their ascent, eventually reaching the top floor where they find only shards of the shattered wind crystal, but no King Tycoon. Oh wait, there he is! King Tycoon tells them that they are now the 4 Warriors of Light, and that they have to protect the remaining crystals so that an evil presence doesn't awaken and destroy the world. He then vanishes, much to Lena's distress. But the remaining crystals across the world bestow their blessings upon the party, and the shards of the wind crystal give up their knowledge, along with the power of ancient warriors, which in practical terms means everyone can change job classes now. But I always wondered, how exactly do the crystals impart this knowledge? I mean, I know that merging game mechanics and story doesn't always work well, but these crystal shards have a bunch of knowledge that can allow you to cast spells or become a bare-fist fighting monk or sword-wielding knight, but you also have to earn a bunch of your skills through experience, and it's not like each job corresponds to a particular crystal shard, because you can have a whole party of white mages or something if you really want. So like, how does this even work? Oh, my aching head. Right, on with the story. The party leaves the shrine thanks to a convenient warp panel behind the altar, and learns that there are crystals at Waltz and Karnak that were amplified the same way the wind crystal was, which is probably what caused it to overload and shatter and screw up the world. But first, we need to go rest in Tool, where the pirates rush in and are all grog, grog, like demented frogs or something, and Ferris leaves to get plastered too. Fun times! Ferris drinks too much and goes to sleep at the inn, and when Bartz goes in to check on Ferris, he comes out with a love-struck look on his face. Galuf wonders what the hell's going on, so he goes to check on Ferris too, and comes out with the same expression, saying that Ferris is just gorgeous. Lena wonders what's going on to make these two feel all funny in their pants, and upon waking, Ferris also wonders what got into them that they're acting so frickin' weird, and just tells them to bugger off for a while. Okie dokie then. As it turns out, Tool is where Zoc lives, and Zoc built the Torna Canal, and the Torna Canal is where the party needs to pass through to get to Waltz, so it makes sense to ask for the key to the canal while everyone's here. Zoc says that he lost the key a long time ago, but invites everyone to stay the night since they've come so far. That night, Bartz takes a walk in the moonlight and spends some time reminiscing. He remembers a night as a child when his parents thought he was asleep, and hearing his father talk about how the crystals must be protected at all costs, but that Bartz shouldn't ever know about them because they aren't his burden to bear. So Bartz's dad clearly knew something was up with the crystals, something very important, and even though he never did pass on that knowledge, Bartz ended up tangled up in this whole mess anyway. Tiring of his memories, Bartz heads back inside and encounters Zoc, who hands over the canal key after all, revealing that he lied about having lost the key because he was worried about Lena. Some things are just bigger than one person's desires, and clearly saving the world is one of those things. On the way out of the city, Ferris makes the decision to join the party permanently, leaving the pirate life behind because, again, some things are bigger than one person's desires. And with Ferris, the party now gets use of Ferris's ship, and I guess all the other pirates are left stranded in Tool now and have to make their own way back to the hideout. Welp. The party makes their way to and through the Torna Canal, but suddenly a huge whirlpool appears and the ship gets sucked into the vortex. Sildra cries in alarm, and then the ship is attacked by a giant scorpion monster thing called Carlabos. Carlabos? Scorpion monster thing, whatever. After its defeat, the ship frees itself from the swirling waters, but only at the expense of Sildra. Ferris is devastated. Without Sildra to pull the ship, and without wind to sail, the ship drifts along the current until it floats its way to a ship graveyard, a mess of wrecked boats that Ferris describes as a nest for the undead. Oh goody. After fighting their way through hordes of reanimated skeletons, the party finds a section of an old ship that's relatively intact, and they take the opportunity to dry off and rest for a while. Lena goes into a private room to change, leaving the others to their own devices. Ferris refuses to strip off any wet clothes, and Bartz and Galuf are like, seriously, don't be ridiculous, and go over to help Ferris disrobe, but then, shock of all shocks, it's revealed that Ferris isn't a man as they had previously assumed. Ferris is, in fact, a woman. Betcha someone's gonna go back and check earlier parts of this video to see if I let any pronouns slip. Ferris explains that yes, she is a woman, and she disguised herself as a man because, well, would you want to be the only girl on a ship full of pirates? Ferris may have risen to captaincy, but posing as a man gave her a degree of protection that nothing else would, and probably was part of what let her rise to power in the first place. She's fine with being a woman, so long as she doesn't get made fun of or held back for being so. Galuf, naturally, takes this all very progressively, saying he knew Ferris was too pretty to be a man, and just, dude, have you seen some men? Men can be pretty as fuck. Anyway, the party presses on through the rest of the ship graveyard, finally reaching a beach and dry land once more. But all is not safe, as suddenly Bart's mother appears, beckoning him closer. Then King Tycoon, calling to Lena, with Ferris getting caught up in the call too. Then finally a blonde girl, calling to her grandpa, but Galuf's amnesia means he can resist that compulsion. The Master of Illusions appears, a siren, here to steal everyone's souls. Galuf wakes everything up with some sharp smacks to the head, the illusions vanish, and Siren gets whomped by an angry group of people who are still in possession of their souls, thank you very much. The party makes their way to the town of Carwen, where they learn that Waltz, where the next crystal is, lies across the ocean to the south. Without a boat or Sildra, the party seems stumped, until they hear rumors of a flying dragon in the area, one that sounds an awful lot like King Tycoon's wind drake, Hiryu. It was last spotted near North Mountain, so that's where the next stop on the journey is. The trip up the mountain goes relatively smoothly until about halfway up, where Lena encounters her father's helmet lying on the ground. While inspecting it, she gets shot with an arrow shot by a woman named Magisa. Magisa is also hunting the Windrake, but with the intention to kill it and get money from selling its body parts. But hey, the Princess of Tycoon will also make a great souvenir for her husband? What the hell, Magisa? Well, that does give people ample reason to beat the crap out of Magisa and her husband Forza. That'll teach them to kill endangered animals and to treat people like trophies. Ugh. At the top of the mountain, Hiryu lies injured. Lena sees dragon grass, which will heal Hiryu's wounds, but it's surrounded by deadly flowers, and dragon grass itself is toxic to humans. Heedless of the danger, Lena wades through the poisonous plants to get the dragon grass, managing to do so and give it to the Windrake before collapsing. Hiryu recovers, cures Lena's poison somehow, and then I guess is just cool with everyone climbing onto its back so they can take a ride over the ocean. Arriving in Waltz, the party makes their way to Castle Waltz to talk to the king about, maybe stopping amplifying the crystal's power because that makes them go kaboom. The king refuses, stating that the reason Waltz is comfortable and prosperous is because of the crystal's amplification. Stopping that process would ruin his city and his people, and besides, there's no evidence that what happened to the wind crystal will also happen to the water crystal. Another meteorite falls, landing near the tower where the water crystal is kept. This makes the king mobilize the guard for some reason. I mean, the tower wasn't hit directly, but I guess this is a big damn emergency because those guards have to get to that tower pronto. Time for Bartz and Co. to follow suit. Inside the tower, Waltz's guards lie broken on the floor. Something named Garrula went storming madly into the tower, knocking down anything and anyone in its way. The king chased after it, along with a mysterious knight. King Waltz, too, is found lying on the floor, talking about Garrula and begging the party to save the crystal. Makes you wonder if the king knew this whole time that the crystal was in a delicate state and might be damaged really easily. Garrula awaits in the room with the crystal and attacks the Warriors of Light, enraged beyond reason. After killing it, the crystal shatters. The party arrived too late. The aforementioned knight was also in the room, and before dying, addresses Galuf as Lord, apologizing for not being able to protect the crystal. The tower begins to collapse, so the party hurries out, but not before collecting the latest batch of crystal shards, obtaining the knowledge and power within. Maybe they should have moved faster though, since not only does the tower collapse, but the entire peninsula it was on crumbles into the sea. Everyone falls into the water, but is rescued by... It's Sildra! Sildra, who... looks like it's eating everyone, sure, but it's really a rescue. Sildra vomits them back up later, so it's fine. Everything's fine, really. Oh, that was, sadly, Sildra's last hurrah. Sildra used the last of his strength to rescue Ferris and friends, and then passes away beneath the waves. A moment of silence for our dear scaly friend. Okay, moving on. Maybe everyone needs a break. A break with some luxury involved. It's time to go back to Castle Tycoon and maybe let everyone know that their princess is still alive, that Hiryu isn't dead, but the king's still kinda missing. And sleep in some comfy beds while they're at it. That night, Lena awakens and takes a walk and finds Ferris standing on the balcony. Lena puts a few clues together and calls Ferris her sister. Ferris scoffs at the idea, but Lena has noticed Ferris's rather special pendant, one that Lena's older sister once had, and she won't be dissuaded from the idea. The plot thickens. The tremors of the sinking peninsula open up a hole in the crashed meteorite, which, upon exploration, reveals a freaking teleporter in the center. Galuf can't help but think this all seems so familiar, but his memory is still very fuzzy. But hey, in for a penny, so they all hop into the teleporter and come out not far from Karnak. How convenient! But the moment they try to spend their hard-earned money in a store, they're arrested, accused of being in league with monsters, specifically a werewolf, since people saw them all come from the meteorite. Oops. The party is thrown into jail, but is sort of rescued when the wall to the adjoining cell blows apart, courtesy of a man named Sid, who was also imprisoned, trying to escape, and used the last of his explosives to break down the wrong wall. Good job there, buddy. Turns out Sid is the man who developed the process to amplify the crystal's power, using machines in an attempt to bring them back to the level of power they supposedly held hundreds of years ago. When he realized that the process was behind the destruction of the wind and water crystals, he attempted to turn off the machine in Karnak, but was jailed for his sabotage. While Sid is telling this sorrowful tale, the Chancellor hurries in, shouting to Sid that the crystal is cracked, he was right all along, but even with the machine now shut down, the crystal's power keeps increasing and threatening to overload. Sid speculates that the fire-powered ship is probably still leeching power from the crystal, and enlists the help of Bart and Party to shut down the problem at the source. The The fire-powered ship is teeming with monsters for some reason, so there's that to contend with as the party makes their way towards the engine room. Seriously, who designs a ship like this? Sid, you have some serious explaining to do. I mean, did you really think it would be a good idea for crew to have to use a system of levers to switch walkways and bridges just to get to where they were going? You couldn't have invested in some better design plans? You may be a genius, but you're also a sadist, and I am not happy with you. In the engine room, Queen Karnak stands silently before glowing with a dark aura and telling the party they will pay for interfering with her revival. You what now? She commands Liquid Flame to advance on the party, which needs to be dealt with before the Queen collapses and admits that she was being controlled by an evil spirit that wants to bring darkness to the world. That spirit is using the crystals to power its own resurrection, and the fire crystal must be saved so that this doesn't happen. In the crystal room, which I guess is just beyond the engine room of the ship because reasons, the crystal is actually still intact. Guess everyone showed up on time for once. But wait, there's that meddlesome werewolf that has been plaguing the town. And he recognizes Galuf too? Galuf pulls the whole "I can't remember anything" routine, and before anything else can be said, a random guard sneaks in the back way and flips a switch to force power through the crystal to make it shatter, glowing with malevolent aura and cackling about how this will break the third seal. The werewolf sacrifices himself to give the party time to escape so that they can try and protect the one crystal that will remain after this one inevitably shatters. The floor opens up beneath the party's feet, and they fall through the ship and into the castle dungeon? Okay, was all of Karnak designed by MC Escher? Because that's about the only way I can think that all of these places connect like this. Karnak breaks reality. Anyway, since Karnak breaks reality and the castle's very existence was also tied to the crystal, the whole place will blow up in 10 minutes, and anyone left inside will literally be fuel on the fire at that point. Monsters attempt to slow the party down, but everyone escapes with plenty of time. Alas, the castle does indeed self-destruct. The explosion sends crystal shards flying, and the party collects a few more. One of those shards teaches you how to become a ninja. How cool is that? But the fire-powered ship still exists, and there's a long journey still ahead, but Sid is too despondent to give permission for anyone to use it. A local wizard mentions Sid's grandson Mid, who lives in the Library of the Ancients, and who may be able to snap Sid out of his doldrums. Only Mid appears to be missing, so I guess the party has to search through a library filled with books that attack people in order to get him back. What even is this game? Turns out Mid didn't even notice all the commotion of people fighting book monsters right behind him, and is more concerned with people interrupting him when he's reading. He returns to the main section of the library, revealing to fellow scholars that he found a book that has all the details on how to bring power back to the fire-powered ship, because I guess word travels faster than people in this game. I mean, the explosion at Karnak happened like an hour ago. How on earth does Mid already know about it and is seeking a way to fix the problem? Anyway, the party escorts Mid back to Sid, and Mid gives his grandfather a major scolding for having the audacity to be upset over the fact that his invention ended lives and might destroy the world. Yes, Sid, how dare you? Mid encourages Sid to not give up, to always try again, and that does indeed motivate Sid to repair the fire-powered ship so that Bartz and the others can use it to save the Earth Crystal. Meanwhile, Mid's interactions with Sid feel very familiar with Galuf, bringing out hazy memories of a blonde girl named Creel, beating him in a very similar manner. Suddenly Galuf's memories come flooding back, and he reveals that he's not even from this world, that he came here in one of the fallen meteorites in order to stop a great evil from awakening. 30 years ago, Galuf and 3 others came to this world to seal away an evil being known as Exdeath. But now the seals are weakening, and Exdeath is awakening, and he must be stopped. The ship's modifications are finished the following morning, so it's off to find the Earth Crystal. The party makes their way to the town of Crescent, and immediately upon arriving, an earthquake happens, causing a whirlpool that sinks the ship. Come on, we just got that thing. Ugh, fine. Maybe there's something interesting in this nearby forest. Hey, it's a black chocobo! Those things can fly! This one, though, seems to have something stuck in its throat, so Ferris thwacks it on the back, and out pops a crystal shard. Now that the chocobo has been saved, the party can fly and free themselves from this tiny island. I mean, they just got here, and nothing happened except for losing one form of transportation and gaining another one. Truly the best use of everyone's time. But the black chocobo can, at least, fly over all but the highest mountains, so it is an upgrade from the ship at least. But maybe someone should tell Sid and Mid that all their hard work was ruined in like 5 minutes. So everyone heads to the Library of the Ancients to confess this, and both Sid and Mid are all, whatever, we'll just make another one. They do reveal, though, that King Tycoon was last seen wandering in the desert of shifting sands, floating to escape the sands that flow like water. Handy trick, that. Even if nobody in the party can float, they make haste to the desert to follow the king, using the newly dead body of a sandworm to cross some of the worst sands so that they can enter the desert. After wandering through a maze of shifting sands, and ignoring the very large temple right in the middle, the party crosses the desert and makes their way south to the town of Ruin. Lovely name, that, but it does accurately describe the place. Ruined buildings, broken pillars, and oh hey, that's King Tycoon wandering around, darting in and out of sight. Eventually, he's cornered in a small building, and both Lena and Ferris try to reach out to him, calling him father, or in Ferris's case, Papa. The words have no effect on him. A pit opens up under everyone's feet, and they fall to the floors below. Ferris and Lena have a touching moment where they acknowledge to each other for the first time that they are indeed family. The group finds an odd platform that teleports them halfway across the world, right back to Crescent, or at least some ruins very close to it. Very nearby is the forest where they found the Black Chocobo, and by a remarkable coincidence, so is that very Chocobo, having been returned there by a responsible Sid and Mid. Only earthquakes happen again, opening up the ground beneath Sid and Mid and throwing them down into the ruins too. Oh, and by the way, they found another freaking ship. This party finds and loses forms of transportation so quickly it should be illegal. Turns out this new ship is an airship, and Sid has a grand old time getting it to work again. Now everyone can travel through the air, go anywhere, even over mountains too high for the Black Chocobo to handle. A short flight later, and the party witnesses an entire town just poof away, and from where it once stood, a huge menacing floating fortress arises. The Warriors of Light return to Sid and Mid to seek advice, and wouldn't you know, that floating fortress? That's where the Earth Crystal is. It's higher up than the airship can go, though, so what's needed is some adamantite to reinforce the ship to withstand the higher altitudes. Galuf says the meteor he came to this world in had stores of adamantite inside, and they would suffice for the job. A quick trip to Galuf's meteorite, and defeating an angry Adamantis later, and Sid and Mid get to work upgrading the ship. Up, up, up we go! The flying fortress has 4 defensive cannons that need to be disabled before an even bigger cannon appears as a final desperate defense. Once it's been blown up, it leaves a lovely airship-sized hole to fly into, letting the party into the floating Ronka ruins. Eventually, they come across King Tycoon, who imperiously commands everyone to defeat the enemy that stands in his way. Surprise, surprise! He was being controlled by Exdeath the whole time, and used the Warriors of Light to make it easier to get to the last crystal. Bamboozled again. Another meteor falls, and the back wall of the crystal room explodes, and out pops that blonde girl from Galuf's memories, Creel. She sends a bolt of magic at the king, knocking him back, and then rushes to her grandpa Galuf. The sight of her removes the rest of Galuf's amnesia, somehow. Whatever works. King Tycoon awakens, freed from his compulsion, and recognizes both Lena and Ferris, whose birth name was Sarisa. During the reunion, however, the final remaining crystal shatters, shards falling around the assembled group. All 4 of Exdeath's seals have now been broken, and Exdeath has returned in the flesh. He commands what remains of the crystals to attack Bart's, threatens to destroy Galuf's world, and then buggers off. King Tycoon entreats the Warriors of Light and Creel to continue on their quest to save the worlds from Exdeath, and then expends the last of his power in an attempt to reunite the crystal shards. Alas, he fails, falls, and fades. The crystal shards give their power and knowledge to a grieving party. The crystal's power gone, the ruins begin to fall from the sky. The party hurries back to the airship and beats a hasty retreat before the ruins crash down to Earth one final time. This game just got hella depressing. On the airship, Galuf reveals his newly recovered memories to the team. Exdeath was an evil warlock originally from Galuf's world who ended up going to Bart's world in order to destroy the crystals there. How he knew to do this, why he wanted to do this, I don't know. And it's probably not that important to the story or something. But Galuf was part of the Dawn Warriors, 4 warriors who sealed Exdeath using the power of the crystals he wanted to destroy. Galuf and the other Dawn Warriors rested on their laurels, thinking the battle was over, but recently they realized something was terribly wrong, and so they took the meteorites to Bart's world to check on the situation, only to arrive too late to do anything. Exdeath has returned to Galuf's world, once again intending to destroy it. Galuf and Creel decide to return to their own world to fight against Exdeath. It's a one-way trip and there's no returning, so this, Galuf says, is a final farewell. Bart objects, saying that they'll all be going with him to fight the good fight together, but Galuf refuses to let them on the grounds that none of them would be able to return to their own world if they left to go to his. They have their lives here, and he has his duties there, and that should be the end of it. Creel and Galuf fly away. But, I mean, these people aren't the Warriors of Light for nothing. Bart's, Ferris, and Lena aren't about to sit idly by when they could be helping Galuf, their friend and fellow warrior. Together with Sid, they determine that while none of the remaining meteorites have enough power to get them to Galif's world, the combined adamantite from all of them might be enough to recharge a single meteor to make the trip. It takes some time, and some boss fights, but all of the adamantite from the other meteorites is collected, which turns out to not so much recharge a single meteorite as much as it just creates a warp point that I guess bends time and space so people can travel to another world. Though once the Warriors of Light have gone through it, I have to wonder, did the portal stay open? Did other people stumble across that warp and fall through too? Did it close down after sending our three heroes to another world? Questions. Questions that need answers. Bart, Lena, and Ferris fall through the other side and wake up on an island, with no way to get off it. Nothing to do now but rest and to try again in the morning. Oh, hell no! Lena and Ferris have been kidnapped! And now Bart's too! This time, they wake up in a prison cell in Exdeath Castle. Oh joy, oh bliss. Galif is attacking the castle with an army, and Exdeath uses this opportunity to project an image of the captive Warriors of Light in order to threaten Galif. One more step and they die! Galif orders everyone to fall back rather than risk his friends. Once the army has retreated, however, Galif borrows Creel's Windrake to launch a rescue attempt. He sneaks his way through the castle, but gets caught by Gilgamesh, one of Exdeath's lackeys. Gilgamesh talks a big game, but doesn't prove to be much as a challenge, as Galif takes him down solo. Or rather, Galif beats on him until Gilgamesh decides to save his own skin and run. But hey, that works out well, because now Galif can free his companions from the cell, and the Warriors of Light are together once more. Time to flee the castle. And to cross Big Bridge, which is pretty much the only way to get away from the castle. Big Bridge is being guarded by Exdeath's many monster allies, so it's time to fight through waves of enemies seeking to impede the group's escape. Halfway along the bridge, Gilgamesh comes barging through the door and wants a rematch, only now he has to contend with 4 people instead of just 1. Unsurprisingly, he flees once more. Yeah, you better run. As they reach the end, Creel runs out to warn them about the barrier, which expands outward from Exdeath Castle and forces the party off the bridge in a sort of zooming motion. Huh, didn't expect that. They all wake up in a place called Glosiana, the ass end of nowhere. Galif seems to be annoyed and pleased to see his old friends once more, but that's a matter for later since now they have to find their way, anywhere. Fighting groups of flying pigs might seem like fun, but they have an Exdeath to defeat. Fortunately, the town of Regol isn't that far, and it seems like a good place to rest and recover for the moment. How can anyone refuse when the innkeeper says that business has been so slow he'll let everyone stay for free? I don't think that's how businesses work. This time it's Galif's turn to take a stroll in the moonlight, though his departure wakes Bart up, and he decides to follow. He finds Galif drinking alone in the pub. Galif asks why Bart and the others decided to come to this world, and Bart tries to downplay it by saying, no reason, just for funsies, I guess. Come on, Bart, just admit that you came because you're a good person who wants to see this battle through to the end. Is that really so shameful? Acting like leaving your entire world behind is no big deal just makes Galif feel worse that you had to make that sacrifice. Yes, I know they're video game characters who can't hear me, what of it? So, the party has to make their way back to a place where they can do some good, and during their wanderings, they stumble across a forest with, it's a Moogle! Ah, heck, he got scared away, and fell into a hole. Welp, time to go save it. The underground cave has a lot of flowing water to drift upon, but eventually the party finds the Moogle under attack from a vicious dinosaur skeleton. Rawr! And what's the best thing to do with a reanimated skeleton? Bring them back to life with a phoenix down, of course! Which kills them. Being undead is complicated. The grateful Moogle shows the Warriors of Light how to traverse a safe path through the nearby dangerous desert, which leads to the Moogle's forest village. Which is just adorable if you ignore the fact that at one point Bart puts on a Moogle costume and has a random Moogle fall in love with him, and why was that costume even there? When most humans have a human suit lying around, it's probably made from actual humans. I don't want to think about how Bart's might have just put on the skin of a cute dead thing. Okay, moving on. As it turns out, Moogles can communicate telepathically over long distances, and Creel has a Moogle friend that she can understand, and so by this, Creel learns that Galif and the others are in the Moogle village and in need of assistance. She flies her Windrake to pick everyone up and bring them back to Galif's castle. That's King Galif's castle, technically, but he doesn't want to stand on technicalities with his friends, so to them, he's just plain old Galif. Creel, meanwhile, is upset because her Windrake is dying. It was already wounded when it flew out to rescue everyone from the Moogle village, and it pushed itself too hard to get the job done. Jeez, this game is a dick to animal companions. But take heart, because Lena figures that dragon grass must exist in this world too. Drakes in her world always nest near patches of dragon grass, and since drakes exist in Galif's world, she figures they'd behave the same way and roost near dragon grass. I mean, okay, that's some interesting logic you've got going there, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Windrakes roost near Drakenvale, but nobody who's gone there has ever returned. But, that doesn't stop Barts from insisting that they'll be the first to do it then. Ever the optimist, that Barts. To Drakenvale! And at this point, this video has gone on longer than I initially expected it to, so my apologies, but I think I'm going to have to split this up into 2 separate videos. Better than sitting through one super long video, am I right? I'll get the rest of this story out as soon as I'm able, but in the meantime, if you enjoyed this, please consider leaving a like or a comment, or sharing it around so that others might discover my weird projects. Thanks to everyone for watching, and I'll be back soon with the continuation of this video.